No Randy yet? Okay, let me get Randy.
Okay, we are live. Good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about workforce development this morning. It's an ongoing conversation to make sure we have people to do all the work we envision coming up with all these new federal dollars. So we've invited Matt Musgrave to kick it off and to talk to us about what he's seeing in the construction industry. On this committee, we're hearing a lot about housing needs and monies to rehabilitate and create new housing. And in finance, we're hearing about the need to do a large amount of build out for broadband. So curious to what the construction trade is seeing on the ground and what they're hearing from our neighbors in terms of this the stimulus package. So let's turn it over to
Yeah.
Matt. And
And
Matt,
just
could you
thank
introduce?
everybody, these are sections 3 and 4 of H 159.
Okay.
There may be more, but
Right.
that's
Matt, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for having me here this morning. For the record, my name is Matt Musgrave. I'm with the Associated General Contractors of Vermont. We are a trade association. We represent the road and bridge construction folks. We represent commercial construction. We also have a contingency of residential home builders. We also have an electrical association that we manage as well. Our members employ, depending on the economy, anywhere between 15,000 and 18,000 people in the state of Vermont. These jobs that they offer are paying well above the livable wage. If you go and look at the prevailing wage index that the state of Vermont follows, it'll show some very generous salaries as well as benefits that not the organization, but our members are paying out to their staff. And they work very hard. It's a competitive market. Prior to COVID, I could have told you that at any time within a 3-month period, I could put 1,000 to 2,000 people to work. What we're hearing a lot of is there is a lot more work available than there are resources, meaning human resources. So this is a challenge that we work on. My job, as you know, much of it is advocacy work like I'm doing right now. When you don't see me, I'm generally working in the workforce development world. And what I can do is tell you a little bit about what we're doing currently here at AGC. And I'll tell you a little bit what some help that we could get from the legislature as well. And as far as the bill that's in front of you, we're generally supportive of everything that we've seen in there. So I didn't have any specific talking points on the bill, only to talk to you in general terms about our market and things that would work well for us. Before I get started, I do want to take the opportunity to thank everybody on this committee and the legislature for the hard work that you're doing behind Zoom. Just from the outside looking in, your already difficult jobs have been put under a microscope, and it's got to be extremely frustrating. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. I miss the in-person thing. I miss meeting with you folks face to face, but I also miss meeting with the other advocates, not just the ones that I agree with, but the ones that are on opposing sides of issues. So we sit down in the lunchroom and we have meaningful discussions. And whereas right now in Zoom, I know where you are all the time, I don't know where some of my colleagues are. And so I miss that connection. I can't wait to hopefully see you back next year. So with that, I'm going to move forward. So what does AGC do to increase the workforce? As you know, I personally testified in support of H533, which passed, that created pathways for new Americans to join the workforce, creates programs to deal with barriers to employment, such as someone that had been incarcerated needing to be able to get a lift to go to work, for example, can be very hard if you're in a rural area. And it also added construction to the list of industries that the Department of Labor can work with to provide grants for training and workforce development. AGC is proud to say that we also invest our members' money. We invest over $25,000 a year into construction promotional materials that we distribute to schools. One of those documents I've shared with this committee in the past, which is how to talk to your parents about getting into the trades. We also do about $10,000 a year of scholarships, and we do have a dedicated half of a full-time employee position dedicated to workforce development. And this is all paid out of membership dues from our association. I personally regularly participate in job fairs, speak at schools. Richard Wabi as well, our executive director, does this. We attend parent forums. We also help run the Skills USA competition, which is a national competition that young people in trade schools can compete in their particular trade, whether it be electrical or stick building or anything under the sun that they're learning. And we send a person off to the national competition, and that's something that we've really enjoyed. It helps reward those young people that are working. It gives them a pat on the back that they're building a life. One of the other things that we've done for those schools recently, I know props aren't always a great thing, but there was no graduation last year for these young people. So what AGC did was we bought these commemorative coins and we sent them out to all the young people that graduated the tech programs, just so that they know that we're here. There is a pathway for them after school, and they made the right decision choosing the trades to go. So we're also continually creating alliances with other business groups, Vermont Technical College, like technical career centers, the litany of different workforce development groups, and we'll talk about that in a minute. One of the things that we're really excited to talk about, we've just begun early talks. We listened to the governor's address a few weeks ago when he talked about the new Americans that were arriving at our southern border and the potential to have to welcome some into the state of Vermont. So we've begun discussions with some other business groups to talk about how we can welcome and help those newly arriving Americans, with sponsorship opportunities, with housing, with employment, with creating opportunities for them to deal with English as a second language, as well as community integration, and to provide them with work when they get here. So we're really proud to talk about that, and we definitely would encourage the legislature to be involved with that as well. We've also expanded our educational opportunities within AGC beyond just safety, and we're well known for doing the Office of Safety and Health Administration, as well as the Mining Safety and Health Administration. But we've now decided to start running leadership programs so that we can help with that pathway from the the groundwork and labor that just barely starts to getting them in and moving up within the business. And we have a great history here that we can talk to, and I'm happy to provide examples of people that have started as general laborers and have worked their way up in a short period of time to become principals and owners of companies. So we're happy to see that, and that's why we've adopted the career pathway approach to this line of work.
Can I ask a question? I would love, oh, sorry. Is it okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So you talked a lot about entry-level roles for new American folks. When you said there are people who are moving up and creating opportunities for ownership and higher management, were you also talking about new Americans? Are you tracking the demographic?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Oh,
do you have like a percentage, or do you have a sense of percentage of how many new American folks or people who traditionally haven't held wealth are making their way to that kind of opportunity?
Well, I will say that we're simply reacting to the governor's comments and the current migration situation that's going on right now. And the number that I heard during the governor's speech was that Vermont was looking to welcome 300, but I don't know that there's any empirical data or anything like that I have at this point, other than a motivation to be involved with the process.
Right.
Okay. I was talking about past immigrants and refugees that, have obviously probably maybe had wealth, but have lost it when they got here. And if you have a sense of any stories or data about how you've helped those people move to ownership and higher level management.
No, and I think that's the one of the big questions that we've been seeking, and I know that you've been working very hard on. That is not something that is readily available information for us, but I will do some surveying to see what I can find. But I think that we all realize that is a very difficult it's a very difficult question right now in Vermont to answer.
Well, If I may,
ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
it's a huge opportunity. I think one of the things I'm hoping we can chat about with all of you is some of the opportunities we see with populations that are under attended to, let's say, and that may have huge numbers of skills but aren't given entree to these businesses and to ground level work, entree. So
Well, I can assure you,
I didn't mean to, but I think that we're all very interested in some of opening up more opportunities for workers.
well, I can assure you, as I'm sitting here, that we are very conscious of the fact that the median age of construction workers in the state of Vermont is between 55 and 60 years old. And that presents an immediate pending challenge to this industry. And what that means is that we're looking for people that can be entry level, can be highly skilled, can come into our work and start their business. I think for the benefit of the state, if we had more industry, more opportunities, more people bidding on projects, that could potentially be a benefit to the state budget. So we're certainly happy to become involved with that. And there's only motivation to become part of a part of that process and educate us in how to be part of that process. So yes, I hope that answers your question. So other things that we're doing as well, we were one of the founding members of the Vermont Construction Career Council. We were the first National Center for Construction Education and Research, that's NCCER program, which is a nationwide program that creates pathways to construction through that career ladder. So it is a very deliberate process, and it's for everyone, every single person that wants to come. We also were proudly one of the first industries that were not deemed essential to reopen last year. In fact, we were one of the only states in the union that construction was not deemed an essential industry, but we turned around very quickly working with the Restart Vermont program and wrote the very first employee exposure prevention plan that we worked with the Vermont Department of Health with, as well as ACCD and VOSHA. And VOSHA actually adopted the majority of our document that we put out. And they are actually using that today on their website. So we're happy to have put people back to work very early. We're common, we're not getting into a UI discussion, but we're commonly one of the largest users of the unemployment insurance due to our seasonal layoffs. But last year we had a slight reprieve because we all went back to work right away. So we're very proud to say that. So where that leaves us is, these are the things that we're doing. And whether it's, existing Vermonters, new Americans, whoever it is, we have a very deliberate approach. We have a need. Like I said, at any given time, we need 1,000 to 2,000 skilled workers. But right now with COVID and all this other major goals that you have, and we can talk about that for a minute. Let's just talk about weatherization. If you talk to Senator Bray, they're looking to weatherize around 100,000 homes over the next 12 years. I did the math on that. That is a lot of homes. I mean, you're talking about a construction workforce that's going to have to produce, roughly, 200 homes per week. So, and that's, we're already talking about a market that can't supply that amount of work on, we're already at a shortage. So we do need to build this workforce. We need to.
Matt, can I interrupt for a second? That's a perfect point. Our vice chair asked you about sections 3 and 4 of the bill, and you made reference that you support the bill. As far as I can see in this bill, there's virtually nothing for workforce development other than the state colleges.
Right.
Is that, I'm hoping that you and Alex from the trade unions could put your heads together and give us some idea about how we can do an immediate injection of funds into trade work. This is the economic development bill of the year. I see nothing in here about developing the trades and the pipeline for weatherization, for broadband, for housing construction. All I see is higher ed. And
And a
mostly the
study.
state colleges. A study for $75,000 to do what we asked them to do 2 years ago, and they say they can't do, so now they have to contract it out for $75,000. Have you had any conversations along these lines of how you can help your own industry and the state spend all this money?
So, yes. So to answer the question, as far as the bill goes, I did read the bill and I agree with you that there is no specific outlay of money that will go to an organization such as ours to do this work. What I did see in the bill was that there was one section that stood out to me, and that's where this next comment, this is one of my recommendations, was that we need to identify opportunities to better target the grants that we're already giving, because there's a lot of duplication of services that exist out there. So what I'm saying, a prime example, and I won't pick on the organization, it's no one in the room, but I'll leave the names out. But we produced, and I would encourage you to check out on the written testimony that I've submitted. There's a link to our workforce development page. We spent $15,000 producing a professional video. This was using member funds to produce a professional video that we would put out that talks about coming into the construction workforce, what it means, what it does. And within 3 weeks of us releasing this commercial, another organization released almost the identical commercial using our members who are in our commercial, using the exact same production company. So, and that was state money. So when we look at what's going on out there, I was really shocked and surprised. And I think Senator Clarkson, you were there when I went to my first workforce development meeting for AGC about 3 years ago. The chart that they put up in front of me, there was hundreds of different organizations that are running around trying to spend state money to develop a workforce. And what my other recommendation was is that we should provide grants to organizations that can prove their qualifications, that they can show what they can actually show their impacts on the population of employees, meaning they can actually show you that the money that you're spending is producing. If I'm going to spend $1 million, how many people am I going to get for that $1 million? And then they already need to be investing capital into workforce development. And that's why I really spent some time talking about AGC's investments, because we're not looking for a handout. We don't operate on grants, but those grants could be helpful in matching the funds that we are already investing into this industry to bring the workforce home. And where are these opportunities? Again, I think it's a lot of public outreach. It's a lot of dealing with, my third recommendation was dealing with the culture within education. I mean, this isn't going to be a flash in the pan. We're going to solve this with COVID money this year. This is a project we're going to have to look out 10 years on. And it starts in early education. One of the things that we find very difficult and challenging is, we are aware that roughly 50% of people go off to a 4-year college, but we're also aware that the remainder of them aren't necessarily being encouraged to look at a trades program. And there is a stigma to wearing a hard hat and standing on the side of the road. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
So Matt, we're aware of all that, and we've made effort to try and address all that and actually drive career and technical education earlier, so we don't lose some of those 16-year-olds, so that we start at a younger age and engage them earlier and market the opportunities. We're going to need jobs now. We're going to need jobs this summer. We're going to need people. And we're going to need people. We have the jobs. And so I think right now we have to be looking creatively at the populations we have that are not fully engaged, and who may. And so I think new Americans, I think juniors and seniors who are in career and technical education right now, and thinking, wow, instead of going to Vista or, taking a gap year, come and work for us for 2 years and you get X you get to fulfill an apprenticeship in plumbing, electrical, carpentry, general contracting, whatever it is. And we accelerate by engaging them and getting a commitment for them of 2 years. We need people for 4 years. I mean, we now need people and whatever. And so I would be looking at prison population. I don't know if I know we're not specifically training our people in corrections on plumbing, electrical, carpentry. We need to be taking any able-bodied adult or 18 plus and giving them, incentivizing them to join us in the work of the next 4 years. Where, it's big. I mean, I think I don't know, and maybe we could get a sense from Nat and Alex and you, if the normal need is a churn of about 1,000 to 2,000, the churn now is going to be what? 6,000 to 10,000 additional people to accomplish all that we need to accomplish? How many are we talking about?
So just a quick response for the corrections. We, as a matter of fact, are working with the institution committee to figure out ways that we can get people to get involved with construction. And one of the big challenges that we deal with when people are incarcerated, and this is definitely a conversation that's occurring over in institutions, certainly in the House. I can't speak to the Senate on that. But there are challenges they're not challenges that the construction industry can overcome without changes in policy in law enforcement, meaning that when people are incarcerated, if they get let out, they have to have a certain amount of supervision. When people go on to parole, they have to have a certain level of supervision. They have to get called in to go in for drug testing. They have to get called in at random times to go in to report with parole officers. Their parole officer, and I'm not making excuses. These are actual reports that I'm making to institutions so that we can come up with solutions to these challenges, because we are interested in that population. But then they have a very rigid schedule of 9 to 5 for the probation officers, and construction is 7 to 3. And so it becomes a challenge. You start building all these barriers that aren't insurmountable for us because they're part of the legal community's rules that we don't have a way around, but we are open.
Great, because I don't think those are unsurmountable.
I'm happy to work with you.
I think where there's a will, there's a way.
I mean, for us in private industry, we can't change laws.
Do you have any specific ideas if we could find one-time monies in terms of internships, apprenticeship, those kinds of entry kind of level that you've seen work here in Vermont in the past, could work now, or your peers in other states? There's some new kinds of programs out there that we could jumpstart something, even if it's on a pilot basis?
Well, off the top of my head, one thing that I think is a very large opportunity that we have right now is that we're currently, I want to say, laying around 6 or 7% unemployment with some folks that in their industry or jobs will not be coming back soon. So if we could create some sort of a pilot program that would incentivize those individuals that maybe had worked in hospitality or maybe had worked in some other vertical that is either going to continue to be severely hampered or will not reopen, that might be a good opportunity, because we have already been working with the Vermont Department of Labor on those ideas, because I'm 43 years old and I have some friends that still they're stuck in the box of the world that they've lived in, and they've never looked outside their box. So if we can incentivize people to look at construction as an opportunity, see what that lifestyle actually pays, which is amazing compared to some of the other industries. I mean, I think that would be an opportunity. How do we target those funds to get people to switch out of that unemployment role now?
Okay, we clearly need to have the Department of Labor, Sarah Buxton and Dustin Degree in. For some reason, we couldn't get them in this week, so I guess we'll have them in next week. But I guess there are leaders in terms of, the pipeline and apprenticeship and what the state is doing. But it's kind of, this bill is a perfect vehicle to do something. This bill was probably passed out of the Commerce Committee before we knew about the COVID relief bill. And, but it does seem to be heavy on, helping the state colleges and getting people into free programs or isolated courses. There's tens of millions of dollars for the state colleges. I'm just not sure. I mean, it's an important part, but it doesn't seem to be trade oriented, I don't think, but we'll learn.
I'd love to hear from, Keisha has a question, I know, and then Nat and Alex, it would be great to hear your perspectives too on this.
Yeah. So Keisha, go ahead.
Well, I hope, all three of you can address this. I mean, I think one of the populations we haven't talked about, though they can often get caught up as a part of the prison population, are people who have opioid addiction. And I have, I'm not trying to be a sort of walking commercial for anybody, but I've been talking a lot to a new program called Working Fields. And they hope to grow their partnerships and grow statewide. And it's made up of a lot of people who've done other great work at the Community Foundation or, other substance abuse treatment centers. And they are really wrapping their arms around people who've had opioid addiction, and it's taken them out of the workforce. They're trying to get them transportation, housing, a recovery coach, group support. It seems so promising, and they connect directly with employers, just like a kind of temp labor organization, but do a lot more wraparound. So I'm just wondering if organizations like that are on your radar. I mean, economists would tell you that over half of the men of working age who are no longer in the workforce are addicted to opioids or using opioids every day. It could be from pain, that they experienced in heavy industries, but that's a population that I think there are certain organizations trying to reach. And I'm wondering what your partnerships look like to help get those folks the services they need to get back into the workforce.
Yeah, I think
that's a sensitive issue in our industry, because you're right. People are injured. It's a very dangerous business to be in. People get injured. Opioid addiction is real. One of our members lost their daughter 2 years ago to an opioid addiction. And last year, with that member, we put together a charity, and the member built in Morrisville, it's called Jenna's House. And Jenna's House is a place for people that are recovering from opioid addiction to go get support, help them re-enter the community, help them find jobs, and help them stay off drugs. So this is something that we do take very seriously. And it is, I'm not at liberty to speak to specifics because we're dealing with people's health and privacy, but regularly do hear about employers stepping up and helping the people that they currently have working for them, and helping people that have come to them looking for work after recovery. So it is something that we are aware of and very sensitive to.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Keisha.
No, everything was Allison was.
No, I was just curious about Nat and Alex, because we just haven't heard from them.
Well, we will.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Matt, I attended an event that your organization put on about 2 weeks ago. And I heard from member after member who said that we have lots of jobs available, and we have people who have worked for us before, employees who are laid off, who are currently collecting unemployment. We want them back. We've offered them jobs back. They won't come back. And I don't know, you probably remember the number of people who got up and said that. What should your members do about that? And what, if anything, should we do about that?
Okay, first I want to just say that, and thank you for bringing that up, but first I want to say, and just to reassure the committee, that when we have these conversations about people not coming back, it's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're lazy. It's because of COVID, because they're looking out for their family. It's because they are good at math and they understand what's going on. So before I address that question, I just wanted to be very clear that under no circumstance does the AGC or any of our members have that opinion. So I just wanted to be very clear there. We do have a challenge with a percentage of our folks coming back, and some of them are genuinely afraid of catching COVID. Some of them, again, are having childcare issues that are forcing them to stay at home. Some of them are having other issues that are related to that. Some of them are looking at what everybody else is doing and staying at home. They're not bad people. We have discovered over the last few weeks that we have to change our policy a little bit. According to the Department of Labor, those people that we have offered jobs back to, they need to come back to work or they will be going off the unemployment system. This has put us into a very difficult position as employers. We do not believe that it's the employer's duty to go out and notify these people that they are not following the law by staying on unemployment. That's what we've been told. We've been told that it's the employer's duty to call the employees that are on their seasonal layoff and tell them if they do not return to work that we will report them and a fraud investigation will begin from the Department of Labor and they could potentially reclaw their money. That is a terrible position for an employer to be in. And we're currently working with the department now to see if they will issue some sort of a letter, some sort of a brief, some sort of a bulletin on their website that clearly says that seasonal layoffs do not apply to COVID unemployment. So that is a challenge that we're dealing with right now. We do not want to create a situation that the employer is having to go out and criminalize someone that doesn't realize that they're not following the law. So what we're looking for is help from the department, whether it's a letter, a page on their website explaining that seasonal layoffs don't apply to the COVID work search exemption. We're working on that. That is a challenge that we're dealing with.
So I just want to jump in here because I've heard, Senator Brock, I've heard you mention this a number of times, and Joan Goldstein mentioned it. I think we repeatedly heard from the department exactly what Matt says. If a job is offered to an employee and they turn it down, they risk losing their unemployment benefits entirely. I don't know that it's a criminal act to turn down a job, but you're no longer eligible for unemployment benefits. If they have a continuing COVID reason to be laid off, they have a right to make that case. And I think we keep hearing that the work search requirements are also going to be imminent. So I just take some exception to the fact that there's this class of people, very large number of people, who are gaming the system here. And, maybe it was more the case when we were getting $600 back, but $600 additional. Now it's $300. That's going to end Labor Day. But when you're starting out at a 50% wage replacement, you're still losing money. You're losing health insurance, you're losing seniority, you're losing a lot of things in terms of dollars in a paycheck. So I don't think people are necessarily in a wide scale basis doing that unless I see evidence of that. I think I applaud Matt for what he's doing. I think the department should write some sort of letter like that to let people know that they risk losing their unemployment. But from day one of COVID, I've been hearing this complaint, and I've always told the employers that approach me, I said, well, if you let the employee know, or you let the Department of Labor know that that's not permissible under Vermont law, maybe their thinking would change. And Matt's right. Employers don't want to necessarily turn in their previous employees, but the employees need to know what the law is and the risks they take at that point. So I think that's enough said on that. I applaud you for what you're doing, Matt. I think the department should be working with employers to let people know what the law is. So to the extent there are people out there that don't understand that, they're playing with fire to potentially lose all their benefits. So I do want to move on to other people as well. I wasn't trying to shut people off, but Matt, do you have other comments you'd like to make at this point? I hope you'll stick around to hear the other people's.
I will. I'll stay, and certainly willing to connect with anyone that wants to partner on coming up with an idea or two for this committee. And I certainly take some time on my own to potentially come up with something in draft form that I can send along to you, and I'll do it relatively quickly.
So what I'm thinking is that we would be somewhat remiss, I don't know that we'll get there, if we don't have a section on workforce development in this bill, especially one that deals with the trades, given all we're hearing about. And I find it hard to believe that we can't, we don't have the guidelines yet, but that we can't massage some of this money to be used for training or job supplements, internships, apprenticeship programs. And I would ask all the people here, and we still have to hear from the department of what they're doing, but to reach out to your peers in other states to find out what are you doing?
Yeah.
You gotta have the same problems we're having. What are you doing to encourage this work, this training?
And over the next day and a half, I mean, we're going to be hearing from lots of people, and there are a lot of good ideas out there. So I definitely think we need to expand this workforce development section with immediate actions we can do to encourage and bring more people back into the either in or for the first time or back in. So I agree. We need to expand this workforce development section big time.
Okay. Let's move to Alex right now, if we could. Alex, welcome. Like to hear your thoughts. I know you guys don't you run an apprenticeship program right out of your union hall there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So good morning, everybody. So yesterday, I took quite a bit of time, or on Monday, I took quite a bit of time to read through the bill. And the thing that stood out to me the most is there's absolutely nothing in there really that pertains to the trades at all. So I think that's a pretty large fault with it, considering all the work that's going to be coming up and that is going on currently. And I know whether it's union or non-union, as I can really mostly speak for the plumbing and mechanical contractors. Pretty much everybody is hiring right now. So what that tells me is there's a vast labor shortage, especially with trained and licensed and qualified technicians and installers. So that means we got to get the ball rolling on training and ramp up our efforts on that. So good morning, everybody. As you can see here, my name is Alex Potvin. My father was Jeff Potvin, whom I know some of you may know. And I'm here, I represent the Vermont Building and Construction Trades Council. I'm a member of Local 693. I have been for the last 15 years. We are the organization that represents pipe fitters, plumbers, HVAC techs. We represent about 300 union members throughout the state of Vermont. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to comment. I really appreciate it on this economic development bill. Specifically, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about how the folks in the unionized building trades provide opportunities for Vermonters across the state to have careers that provide livable wages, healthcare, and retirement security. Some of the most reliable and sustainable middle-class careers for people who are unwilling or unable to burden themselves with a massive amount of debt coming out of high school by attending college is to learn a trade. As we all know, a trade is learned by accruing experience in a particular field. Since the later part of the Middle Ages through present day, apprenticeships have been the gold standard for training someone to learn a trade with a combination of work experiences and classroom instruction. In order to not only sustain, but to proliferate these programs, it requires significant investment to ensure the quality of tradespeople. This will ensure that the people who come up through these institutions and enter into a career, not merely as cheap labor, but skilled craftsmen. While the investment in these programs should not only befall the person who is attending the program or the employer that these people work for, but also the government has a responsibility as well. As these initial investments in training can later return as tax income from higher wages earned and retention of residents that will be able to afford to stay in the state of Vermont. First, I'd like to discuss about apprenticeship programs. Currently, building trades apprenticeship programs rely on instructors who are also tradespeople in the field. If there were resources made available for full-time instructors, perhaps as part of H-159, this could significantly enhance the productivity of all classroom and instructional time, and allow Local 693 alone, by a conservative estimate, could create 15 to 20 new apprenticeship opportunities per year, as well as the 10 other trades that are associated with the Vermont Building Trades Organization. Another way to enhance these programs is to include 1 day a week of classroom time, in addition to the 6 hours per week of evening classes for the first 2 years of apprenticeship programs. These are training practices already in place by some of the most highly regarded union training centers and programs, such as Local 597 in Chicago and Local 1 out of New York. This would only work if the apprentices were able to be compensated for their classroom time, for their daytime classroom time, either by contractors they're working for or some sort of state subsidy or grant monies. If H-159 were to include language in which we were able to access state grants for these classroom programs, we'd be able to get people trained and working on their career paths much quicker, building experience, productivity, and much needed workforce.
Does your apprenticeship programs have people in the field from day one, pretty much?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
you're like a helper while you're learning the trade?
We do not utilize the designation of a helper. We are apprentices. You're a registered apprentice with the state.
Sorry,
from
my
day one.
apologies.
No worries. No offense taken.
It's an important and time-honored title, actually.
Absolutely. The biggest thing with that is, especially like as far as the state is concerned, there winds up being some wage designations and things like that, and benefit accrual and things of that nature that wind up changing when you get listed as a helper versus an apprentice.
So are your programs suffering because of lack of trainers or resources, or I mean, is there clearly pent up demand already for people who want to be apprentices, or are you certain that if you had the resources to structure it, that people would come?
The biggest thing is having the resources available to be able to train these people in a effective and efficient manner. Because right now, like I said, we rely on I used to do it when I worked in the field. I would get done working and then come to the union hall and teach a welding class. So
Right. So they're doing it on top of their work. So if we could afford to have full-time instructors who could be working at VTC or something during the day or wherever, because you also partner with VTC, right? I mean, aren't there some of
so all of our training is done in-house here. There's some of our HVAC classes that are done with VTC, but primarily they're all done right here at our training center.
And remind me where your training center is.
Williston, South Burlington and Gregory Drive, right across from the old add-on.
My understanding is that I know it's a very small amount of money, but the state does support in some ways, the union apprenticeship program. At least there used to be a line item in the budget for apprenticeship, some of which went to match some of the services that you provide. Is that no longer true? Has that disappeared?
I could double check for you, Senator, but I do not believe that's the case anymore.
Okay.
It's nothing that I've been, nothing I've heard of since
Well,
my time here.
you probably would be the one to know if you were getting a check from the state. So, okay, well, we'll look into that.
So keep
I interrupted you. Please continue.
got
Sure.
great ideas of how we can invest immediately in growing the workforce.
Say again, I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
You're on number 2. You just finished number 2. But you have specific ideas about how to grow the workforce. So this is great.
Yes, that was my goal here, was to try to at least give you some substance to work with. Continuing on, another suggestion on apprenticeships would be ensure that all training programs have resources to utilize hands-on training equipment, such as boilers, water heaters, electrical panels. There's certain types of piping installation modules, HVAC training equipment. By having access to state funding for this training equipment, we would be able to train our students to an even higher standard than they're currently held. The building trades local unions have long since led the way on education and hands-on classroom training, fully funded by the employers and the working members of these local unions. We have training infrastructure that is currently in place. All programs are accustomed to checks and balances to ensure the proper appropriation of funds. By supporting these programs, we can meet the needs of the workforce demands that are looming with an impending shortage of skilled workers. Finally, on apprenticeships, we think that given the benefits of apprenticeship programs and the career ladder and training they provide, it should be made mandatory that all unlicensed workers for relevant fields must be registered apprentices with the state. This would ensure that all people working in the trades are given the best possible training. If we were to do this, Vermont would produce some of the highest quality craftsmen that we could stand proud of. My next point is touches on prevailing wage a little bit. Since 1970, at the height of the private sector union membership, since then, there's been a significant decline in membership, as well as wage growth for tradespeople in this demographic. While the correlation can be debated, the fact that wage growth has been stifled cannot. In order to mitigate these decreases to ensure employers are paying fair wages and providing suitable fringe benefits, many states, including ours, use prevailing wage requirements. Vermont requires prevailing wage on all construction projects funded by the capital bill, as long as it meets a required threshold. These laws have shown to produce high quality work, increase productivity, and provide middle-class wages to those working in construction. That's why the federal government, through its Davis-Bacon law, has had a similar requirement for the last 90 years. These laws ensure that when government dollars are being spent, they are being spent in a way that provides for stimulus in local economies by setting a minimum standard of pay and benefits for construction projects. If you're thinking about ways to provide economic stimulus in Vermont, one suggestion would be to ensure that any federal money that is spent on construction at a minimum requires Vermont's prevailing wage to attach that spending. It's my understanding, and this was done in 2008 when we received federal stimulus dollars, and it seems to make sense to do it here. In addition, you could also require something similar to what S71 does, which is require that Vermont prevailing wage be applied to school construction projects to the extent of which the state is funding such projects through state or federal dollars. The use of prevailing wage is a direct and immediate way to provide middle-class jobs in Vermont and ensure that it goes directly back into local economies, providing further stimulus to Vermont's economy. Thank you for your time and attention to these issues. They're very important to us, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Alex. Can you just describe, maybe you did, I've heard bits and pieces that the Vermont prevailing wage is either out of date or is it higher right now in your trade than Davis-Bacon wages?
Currently, Vermont state prevailing wage is higher than the Davis-Bacon wage for plumbers and welders. I can't speak to all the other trades though.
Okay. So do you have any, other than you'd like to see it expanded to other federal? I assume that any of this money that comes to Vermont that's used for construction would be at least subject to Davis-Bacon and maybe Vermont prevailing wages if it's over the $100,000 threshold, I think it was. Are you're just suggesting that the breadth of the prevailing wage and what it covers be expanded? You don't have any other concerns with Vermont's prevailing wage law right now?
I mean, we could get into that a little bit. I do think that Vermont's prevailing wage could stand to be updated a little bit.
What is it now, Alex?
Off the top of my head, Senator, I believe for a plumber, it is 20. I want to say 26 and change plus 42% fringe benefit package. So if the employee is not currently receiving a fringe benefit package, then they are just added that 42% into their wages. It's typically how that's done.
So roughly 26 an hour plus 42%.
Yeah, I think that equates out to about $34, $35, somewhere in there.
That's for a licensed plumber?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move on. We're going to shift gears a little bit and hear from Nat.
Sorry,
and-
may I just do a little follow-up with Alex on that?
Absolutely. I can't see you, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's why I'm never shy, as you know. What if that's a little low, Alex? What is the prevailing wage around us in New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire? What would you ideally like to see that wage be?
Well, I would have to double check exactly what the current wages are in Massachusetts and New York. New Hampshire does not currently have a state prevailing wage, but I know Maine does. And every one of them is significantly higher than what Vermont is.
If you'd be kind enough to get those to us, that we'd appreciate that. Maine, the New England states.
Absolutely, Senator.
Thanks.
Okay.
I do have one other thing to mention about trying to tap into new areas to find workers. We've been doing one thing with Burlington Technical Center since their building got shut down. We're working with those guys in their metal fab and welding students have been using our training center. We're doing it as a favor to them to be able to, make sure those guys can go to school still.
Right.
Because it kind of broke my heart to hear that they were going to have to shut that building down, being that they had such a terrific setup there to begin with. And the other thing is, I don't know if any of you folks are familiar with Pam Lazar from Resource. We talk with her quite a bit. We just had her in last week for interviews with a couple of her guys that are attending their program. So,
And what's the name of her program?
Resource.
What are you doing just while we're still on new areas to train people? What are you doing with this, population of new Americans that are in Chittenden County?
So it seems to me that a lot of the the newer Americans, they tend to gravitate towards manufacturing jobs as opposed to trade jobs. And I don't know specifically why that is, but we always are on the lookout for anybody who is willing to come in and learn and and wants to take part in the trade. I can't say this as though we've directly targeted those.
I was going to say outreach because it obviously would involve some language help. But,
Yeah,
but that's not insurmountable. I mean, if there's talent, there's talent. So
absolutely.
and if there are people,
A lot.
one thing we yeah.
Sorry about that. A lot of it winds up boiling down to just it's not even a talent thing at the point of them for initially coming into the apprenticeship program. It's a desire to want to work and want to learn. That's the only real talent they need to start in our apprenticeship program. The rest of it can be taught.
But if we marketed it, if we could figure out a way to market it to new Americans in a more productive way,
Sure.
that might be a great resource for you.
Sure. But I think that's all I've got on as far as those points go.
I'm sorry, how many apprenticeship programs are union shops right now in the state of Vermont?
So there's with the members of the Building Trades Council, there's 10 or 11 different trades associated with us. So all of those have some form of a apprenticeship program or another.
Okay. Can you get us a list of those? Just send it to Nathan, please.
Yeah.
Various programs.
And just while we're on that with Alex and Matt, should we be hearing from the Vermont Construction Career Council? Do we have members from all those apprentice, all those areas serving on this Vermont Construction Career Council that Matt mentioned?
I'll have to see who the existing members are that would maybe be willing to come out, but it could potentially be Richard Wabi from my office is our active member.
Great.
Okay, we may follow up with that next week. Nat, are you able to stick around for a little while? Because we usually take a break at 9:30. Okay, we'll come back at 9:40. We'll take a